Simple, secure, borderless.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to UBC News tonight. It is the 15th day of July 2021. I'm Lauryn Masika Kazimoto and Elizabeth Nakakoni on sign language. Now, as we broke the news earlier on, there's a new list of permanent secretaries that we read earlier on in the last bulletin, and we want you to take a look at the list of new permanent secretaries. And if you can just look at the head of public service and secretary to the cabinet is Miss Lucy Nachobe Mbonye, right there. Then we have the Inspector General of Government, Betty Namisango Kamya. Now the new clerk to Parliament is Adolf Mwesije. And permanent secretaries of Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is of course our very own, one of our very own panelists, Ramadan Ngobi. Ramadan Ngobi, yes. And a permanent secretary to the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, Dr. Amina Zawede. The permanent secretary to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is Vincent Bajire. And the principal private secretary to the President, Dr. Kenneth Omona. Right now, that's the breaking news right there. And of course, we start off with today's news bulletin. President Yoweri Museveni has appointed Miss Lucy Nachobe as Mbonye as the head of public service and secretary to cabinet. We also do see Miss Jane Bareche as the State House Controller, Miss Mariam Wagadia as a chairperson of the Human Rights Commission, Betty Namisango Kamya as new Inspector General of Government. We also do see Anne Muhaire as the Deputy Inspector of Government. Now, Mr. Ramadan Ngobi is the new Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Finance and also Secretary to the Treasury. Now, Adolf Mwesije is the new Clerk to Parliament, and also Principal Private Secretary to the President is Dr. Kenneth Omona. Now, the Principal Private Secretary to the Vice President is Mr. Alex Kakoza, a Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Keith Muhakanizi. Okay, beg your pardon. And the Permanent Secretary to the Office of the President is Eunice Kakande. Private Secretary to the Ministry of Agriculture, Major General David Kasura. All right, and as we move on, the Permanent Secretary in the Internal Affairs is Lieutenant General Joseph Musanyufu. And the PS to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is Agre Chibenge. The PS to the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance is Dr. Amina Zawede. The PS to Ministry of Health is Dr. Diana Atwine. Now, Ministry of Foreign Affairs is Vincent Bajirian. The PS also to the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs is Robert Kasade. Now, the PS, the local government, Benjamin Kamumanya. All right, got that one right. And the PS to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives is Geraldine Sally. The PS, the Ministry of Public Service, is Catherine Bitarakwate. I got that right? Yes. And the PS to the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities, Doreen Katusime. The PS of the Ministry of East African Affairs, Edith Mwanje. The PS of Ethics and Integrity, Alex O. Okello. The PS of Ministry of Water and Environment is Alfred Okidi. The PS of the Ministry of Works and Transport is Bagea Waiswa. Now, those are new permanent secretaries. And this just in as well, by the powers given to the President by Article 99, 172, Section 2 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni has appointed and transferred permanent secretaries to different ministries under his new government. Now, the president is using the same virtue powers and has retired other permanent secretaries. And of course, the list in the shake-up of permanent secretaries is as follows. And that is Chintu Guatude. We also do have Chivumbi Lutaya. We have Pius Wakabi and also Benon Mutambi, as well as David Ebong and Jen Chibirige. And then we also see Ambassador Patrick Mugoya as well. All right. We look at also another list by the powers given to the President by Article 99, Section 1 and Article 171 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda does appoint Dr. John Mitala as the Senior Presidential Advisor on Public Service. And then we see Mary Karoro Okuruchi has been appointed Senior Presidential Advisor on Public Relations. We do see Odrek Rabogo being appointed as a Senior Presidential Advisor on Special Duties. And then we do see Nachiwala Chinji being appointed as a Senior Presidential Advisor on Gender and Youth Affairs. And then finally, we see Adonia Ayebare being appointed as a Special Envoy and Ambassador to the United Nations. Well, we must say big congratulations to them all. All right, now moving on to some more of your news. Kilembe Mines has again been a victim of River Nyamwamba floods bus that flipped over its banks, affecting Kilembe Mines and the mini hydropower stations, though no death has been registered. Now, this time around, there was no communities along the river banks that were affected, since many of the families had been relocated to internally displaced people's transit camps in areas of Muhocha and Kanyangea at the plainlands of Mount Rwenzori, adjacent to Queen Elizabeth National Park. Now, in this report, we tell that Nyamwamba River for over 10 years has been busting catastrophic disasters, displacing communities and destroying public and private properties, evaluated in billions of shillings. Let's have the report.
The river has since 2013 destroyed property and government infrastructure worth billions of shillings. It's unusual to see River Nyamwamba flooding in a dry spell. This morning, River Nyamwamba took residents of Kasesa municipality to another raid of surprise. In the Nyamwamba Valley, the river had to burst again. Thanks to God, it didn't claim any life. For many of the communities that would be victims in the recurrent floods had been relocated to IDP transit camps in Mukoye and Kanyangea at the plainlands of Queen Elizabeth National Park after the previous incidents in 2019. However, this does not mean that no damage was caused. Kilembe Mines Company and some remains of Kilembe Hospital have been the major victims of the recurrent flooding of the river. Despite of the damage again caused, the LC3 chairperson of Lembeya division and the locals here still fault government about the continued occurrence of the river bursting. However, to Bomera, the need to deslit the river is now timely right from its source in the Rwenzori Mountains.
The situation of the people who are affected is bad. For example, even now, some people are still living in camps. They are there. You go to Kanyangea, people left their homes, clothes. They are there, they are living in the camps. So as they are suffering in the camps, these people who are here are also suffering. So people have no life now. If government relocates them to a safer place, they will leave and go there. Like it has done to other places. You saw what happened in Bududa. Government has bought land for the people of Bududa. They will settle them in Chiriandongo. So our people also here need relocation program.
A lot of projects, including the Nyamwamba hydropower second phase, have been swept, including houses that were constructed by residents along River Nyamwamba River Channel, though no longer habitable. The project engineer at this site says several damages have been caused by floods. This leaves them with no option but to have a work plan to start after the river floods.
Working on both projects upstream. Nyamwamba 2 is under construction and Nyamwamba 1 is running plant. Both are very safe, but we are having some damages. Yes.
However, in Kasese municipality, the challenge is beyond the capacity of the municipality leadership. As more people get displaced today, hundreds are still in Muhocha transit camp, faithfully waiting to be given a permanent settlement. Meanwhile, reports so far indicate no casualties and death.
Now we take you live to the Nyamwamba flood-affected victims and communities who are portioning the blame of their continued stay in transit camps and government for failing to fulfill its promise of redirecting the river to its original path, hence staying their lives in danger.
Shida gani?
Mavitu vyao vilienda na nyumba kakabomoka kaingine. So wakakosa nafasi ya kuenda kampu, ndio iliwasaidia wakaenda kuikaa kwa kampu.
Sasa hii tena iko inakuja, mko mnajitayarisha namna gani kwa mnataka mnaenda hama mnaenda fanya nini tena?
Sasa hatujeweze, tuko maskini, tutahama kweli, tunarudi wapi? Mpaka ni kuvumilia, hatuna cha kufanya, Mungu ndiye anachunga.
Ninyi wenye mko mbele huko nafaa kutusaidia. Tunaona Nyamwamba saa hii Nyamwamba sema ilikuwa hivi iko naingia kwenye watu. Kwa pamoja na hiyo wachaje wale namna mtafanya wajuu kutoka tangu Nyamwamba ilikuwa huko nyuma huko saa hii ndio sana. Kai jana kai mabi chikasa hanu na kai mabi tsuko mwenda wa yo yasaba lobola na rikatu kerata ya lebi munani wa iko ikende yani.
Uganda has started registering a gentle downpour trend in the current COVID-19 upsurge. Currently active cases at health facilities stand at 853 with a positivity of 8.2%. Now the numbers are pale in comparison with those which were registered in early June 2021 up to the lockdown. Samuel Senono reports.
Semogere Francis is a florist along Bombo Road in Kampala, and this is a business he has been engaged in for the last 10 years. He says they have never experienced a surge in demand for funeral bouquets and wreaths like they did in the days leading up to the recent lockdown.
If you passed here a week or even days after the lockdown was reinstated, you would see an influx of funeral service vehicles all over the place. Yes. Not only funeral service vehicles or even ambulances carrying dead bodies here and there. Okay? That is 5 days after the lockdown was reinstated. The numbers were high, our sales were high. Our sales in terms of a funeral wreath. At least 10 families would buy flowers on a daily basis.
The increased demand saw many open up makeshift flower stores in order to make a living from this business, which was booming for a tragic reason. However, Semogere says the demand for wreaths has now decreased.
I think because of the lockdown, and given that we don't congregate in numbers, the numbers have reduced. Here you can see, you can even witness the street is empty. There are no vehicles here and there. There is no congestion of people. There is no jam. That must have impacted the spread of the virus in a positive way. That's why we see a reduction in our sales as well. When you compare the sales of then and now, you would see, you've been here at least for some time, you can even witness, you can hardly make a sale of a wreath.
This has been attested to by the Minister of Health, Dr. Jane Ruth Acheng. She, however, cautions the general public against complacency.
However, I want to caution Ugandans not to get excited about this gentle downward trend and forget that COVID-19 is still with us and that there is a possibility of getting a new variant into the country because travel is not prohibited. And even when people travel and test negative, you're not sure whether they will not turn positive in a few days' time. So the caution here is that we all must remain active in following the standard operating procedures.
Acheng adds that they are looking at systematic ways of opening up the economy while emphasizing vaccination. Back at Bombo Road, this wreath is being prepared for delivery. We also told that many who couldn't attend funerals because of the restrictions on gatherings have been placing wreath orders as a way of showing love to the families of the departed. Samuel Sennono, UBC News.
Now, the Norwegian government has extended financial support worth 8 billion Uganda shillings to the World Health Organization to improve COVID-19 vaccination coverage and its intake in the country. Now, as Zahara Bigaba reports, the project intends to support the vaccination of at least 60% of the high-risk population eligible for vaccination.
The Norwegian government has signed an agreement with the World Health Organization worth 8 billion shillings to improve COVID-19 vaccine coverage and its rollout in the country.
It has given 80 billion Ugandan shillings, which comes to about 20 million Norwegian krona, or over $2.4 million. This will, of course, our need is far more bigger than this, but for the vaccines we are going to have next week, which is also supported by Norway's dose sharing, and the one which follows with the another batch which we expect would be from other dose sharing, which would be about another 1 million doses. This funding will make sure that that reaches the public in time.
And let me also mention, since we are here today, that next week, Norway is also providing 285,600 additional vaccines through the COVAX cooperation to Uganda.
According to the agreement, World Health Organization will work with the Ministry of Health for the specified project time of 12 months.
And to date, only 17.5 of these vulnerable people have been vaccinated. However, many of you will also realize that with this second wave, the pattern of vulnerability changed, and many of the youthful people under 40 years of age have been infected, and many have succumbed to the virus as well, meaning that everybody in Uganda, at least above 18 years, needs to get vaccinated.
Dr. Cheng says that there are many molecules of COVID-19 vaccines on the market.
Zeneca, both Covishield and the Vaxzevria. Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Moderna, Sputnik Light, Sputnik, Sinovac, Sinopharm. Those are some of the vaccines that we can have in Uganda. The World Health Organization has only recommended the mixing of AstraZeneca and Pfizer. The others, research is still ongoing. However, because we need to vaccinate the population, whatever vaccine we get, we shall bring it in.
The minister also said that Uganda National Medical Stores has the capacity to store vaccines at very low temperatures like Pfizer and Moderna.
Capacity to store vaccines at very low temperatures. Vaccines like Moderna, like Pfizer, can be stored. We don't have that capacity in the districts, but it doesn't mean we cannot use the vaccines. When the vaccines come in and at the national medical stores, we can carry out outreaches. Move out, vaccinate people, 2, 3, 5 days, bring the vaccines back to national medical stores if they are not used up. Geographically, map out the areas and say if this area here is going to receive Pfizer, then we know the group of people. And then another area can receive another one, so that we avoid mixing, because research has not yet given us all that evidence except for AstraZeneca and Pfizer. But because we need to vaccinate, we are not going to say no to any vaccine that is available. Because right now, there is a high global demand. And we also need to vaccinate our people and open up the economy. So if we are rigid in accepting what is available, then we will not meet our targets of vaccinating them.
The Minister of Health re-echoed the challenge of African countries accessing COVID-19 vaccines, citing global demand.
The challenge is that there is a high global demand for vaccination, and the production does not meet the demand. And therefore, it is extremely difficult to access vaccines, even when you have the money. And so I continue to appeal to Her Excellency, even when you have contributed, you also need to help us pursue and get access to the vaccines.
The country rolled out the COVID-19 vaccination in all 146 districts, municipalities including cities, on March 10th, 2021. Overall goal is to prevent, reduce severe COVID-19 diseases and deaths. Zahara Abigaba, UBC News.
MPs have cross-examined the Kitgum District Task Force over what they described as poor management of COVID-19 funds. Now, in a heated meeting with the Parliamentary Committee on COVID, apparently traversing the northern region and monitoring the government response to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was found that the district failed to purchase most of the requirements for COVID management. Now, our reporter Philip Aguta is in Kitgum and filed this report.
Government has released over 300 million shillings to every district across the country for COVID-19 management since the outbreak of the pandemic last year. The money is meant to fix the missing gaps in the hospitals and enforce standard operating procedures. However, Kitgum's treatment center was discovered to be substandard to treat COVID-19 patients compared to what other districts have done.
One, at the entrance we noticed that we should be having 2 gates to enter that place. Currently we have only one. Where the health workers should be going to the treatment center should be different from that of the patient. That means we need to open another gate. We also noted that there are no changing rooms. We need a tent, temporary tent that could help us, male and female, so that when we are in there, we could change our dressing before we go in. We cannot dress from the entire side, the other side of the main hospital, and walk through the hospital as if we are going to the moon. That is not allowed.
This brought a lot of suspicion among the Parliamentary Committee on COVID-19, questioning why the task force failed to fix the gaps when some other districts have managed to do better with the same amount of money.
And we are told a few were taken to Gulu for refilling. And then here I'm hearing you are saying you have only 2 oxygen cylinders. Can you put that a bit clearer?
Our coming here is to work together, to get solutions to fight the pandemic. Please, let's not concentrate on a lot of things. Let's be very specific.
The MPs also faulted the task force for concealing the facts on COVID management in the district.
Avoid politics. If we are to help our people, we must stop defending the government at the expense of the people we are leading. Look at the contradicting information you are giving. And we are before the camera.
The lawmakers also discovered that there is poor enforcement of the presidential directives to combat COVID-19.
I'm making this comment because as we were traveling yesterday, last night, coming this way, of course, as we entered the Kitgum district, you just see particularly the young people on the road.
The district chairperson pledged to fix the mess among his task force members.
Probably we did not have enough time to get enough information so that we can patch up. But back at home, I want to assure you we shall sit together with the task force team so that we shall try to correct the anomalies that are beginning to exhibit.
Philip Aguta, UBC News in Kitgum.
Now, Private Teachers Union has appealed to the Office of the Prime Minister to consider them among the vulnerable persons urgently in need of the COVID cash relief. The Secretary General of Private Teachers Union, Mwamula Juma, says private teachers whose hope had been built on the 20 billion Uganda shillings presidential pledge have since turned into beggars after failing to access the money in question.
Following the first announcement of COVID-19 case in March 2020, government moved to close most of the economic sector as a measure to curb down the spread of COVID-19. The closure never spared the education sector. However, most affected in the sector were the employed teachers in private schools. Many were left unemployed, and schools that were built on loan ended up being heavily indebted. Under the umbrella body of Private Teachers Union, teachers in private school are demanding through the Office of Prime Minister to be considered among the special interest groups supposed to benefit from the COVID-19 cash relief.
Every person in a private education school, every person who survives by income in a private school, his key challenge is to live to see the next day tomorrow. Even when we do not have exact figure of the number of teachers who have confessed, who have gotten from Nabanja's money, at least a wider proportion of the people who we facilitated to get registered have confirmed that they have not yet gotten Honorable Nabanja's money.
They have also laid down a number of proposals, among which include a call on NSSF to allow private teachers access at least 20% of their savings and immediate release of the 20 billion to teachers' circles.
kaakati kitutta omwaka mulamba bukya president asuubiza ssente ezo. So ekiseera kiba kinene nnyo omusomesa ali eyo yenna ng'ate asuubira nti ddala agenda kufuna ssente. Naye ng'ekisinza okuleeta obuzibu y'enkola ey'okulwisa. Twebuuza ssente ziriwa, buli omu yeebuuza, naye enkola ey'okulwisa.
Mwami Mulindwa Ismail nyongera omujjukiza nti si omu ku basomesa abasomesa mu masomero g'obwannannyini, n'olwekyo ssente ezo mu kifo ky'ozikozesa okukola ebibiina by'abasomesa ebipya aziwe ebibiina by'abasomesa already ebibaddewo.
Earlier on, the National Private Educational Institutions Association had also proposed that government pays salaries for teachers in private school for at least a year, saying that the education sector had been highly affected by the pandemic.
Ye President Museveni alina alabira wala. Yakira banagamba nti no okutaasa kino nteeko obuwumbi 20 bubeerenga basomesa babuteesa abantu basobola okwewola ne bakola ebintu byabwe bayambe mu mbeera eno eya lockdown. Kino kyakolebwa mu mwaka ogwayita mwezi gw'omusanvu. Naye nakati ensonga eno tugirabye nti tenaakolebwako, sente bazita naye neziremerwa abantu abalala abamu. Esaawa eno bwonoonyereza amasomero ga private agali ku katale mangi nnyo, agamu banka zigatwala. So nakyo twetaaga tubeerewo ne government policy esobola okutaasa ku nsonga eno, tulabe nti tulina engeri gye tusobola okuyambako bantu bano.
The chairperson of the National Organization of Trade Union, Asha Wilson Were, urged the government to respond to the call of teachers.
Member wa parliament waffe bwe yayogedde tumuwadde obuyinza abeere nga ateeka gavumenti ku nninga okulaba nti bannyonnyola ssente ezo we ziri naddala mu parliament. Oba tebavaayo ssente ezo tezivaayo mu ministry, tujja kukola kyonna ekisoboka okulaba nti oba twekalakasa oba tukola kintu kyonna ekisoboka.
Health workers at Kazo Health Center 3 have told the Parliamentary Task Force on COVID-19 touring health facilities in Western Uganda that it's difficult to treat and monitor COVID patients under the home-based care treatment. Home-based care treatment was an option devised by the Ministry of Health to avoid overcrowding at health facilities, which would have been a recipe of skyrocketing COVID-19 infections in the health facilities. Now, in this report, health practitioners are also appealed to the visiting Task Force of Parliament on COVID to consider increasing the resource of Ministry of Health to equip health facilities with required proactive gears and equipment in the fight against the spread of COVID-19.
To avoid overcrowding and congestion of patients, the government, through the Line Ministry of Health, opted for home-based care treatment for asymptomatic COVID-19 patients. Under this kind of arrangement, asymptomatic patients are treated from home, while those with severe acute respiratory syndromes are referred to intensive care units where expert medical knowledge is required. However, during an oversight visit of the Parliamentary Task Force on COVID-19 to Mbara Regional Referral Hospital, medical practitioners here told the visiting delegation that treating and monitoring asymptomatic COVID-19 patients under the home-based care arrangement is difficult.
Every patient who is under home-based care is supposed to have at least a health worker, even if it's a VHT or somebody, to keep monitoring them and seeing that they are adhering to the SOPs. That's difficult because we don't have enough human resource to keep following up these patients. It is also possible that some of the patients are getting a progression of their disease. There are very many actually who progress from mild to moderate to severe disease and ending up in hospitals.
This challenge is cross-cutting in all the health facilities in Western Uganda. MPs have visited to assess the government response on treating and managing COVID-19 patients.
Home care is not efficient because people do not have money to buy the medicines. So even when they are home, they are not on home care. They are just on isolation, depending on hubs.
People in homes are not receiving any care. At best, the health workers only prescribe drugs. At best. And these people are just begging for nabanja posho. And after getting posho, they're also asking for beans. Then after beans, they want salt. They even want charcoal. You cannot prescribe medicine of 500,000 and you think they will buy it.
The visiting delegation of MPs constituting the Parliamentary Task Force on COVID-19 in government response in Western Uganda were shocked with disturbing reports that funds allocated by the 10th Parliament to build over 20 isolation centers for asymptomatic and contact tracing cases have never reached the final destinations.
The documents that we got for the first releases in the first wave of COVID, you would see huge sums of money that you would expect that it would come down up the district. But when you collaborate with the district authorities, there are discrepancies.
Go to the ground, there is nothing. We as members of parliament appropriate money. All these allocations are done by us, but we don't implement. So our other role is oversight, because we know how much was appropriated by us.
Despite the suspicious misappropriation of the funds in question, medical practitioners here in an interface with the MPs shared with them the need for the Ministry of Health to revise the home-based care system, but also equip health center 3s with necessary equipment to start treating and isolating COVID-19 patients to scale down the spread of COVID-19 virus, especially in rural Uganda.
I don't know how we can advocate for maybe these facilities also to be asked to declare the number of patients that they have tested and looked after. But on the whole, the idea of home-based care still needs to be revised a lot.
The Office of the Prime Minister, together with the National Planning Authority, will on Friday 16th July 2021 launch the National Development Plan web-based monitoring and evaluation system developed to provide timely progress assessment on the performance of the National Development Plan. This message is brought to you with support from the European Union.
As the financial year 2020-2021 draws to an end, URA has put measures in place to facilitate taxpayers to file their returns and pay taxes within the set deadline. All our offices across the country and the URA Contact Center shall remain open to provide extra support to our esteemed taxpayers. Additionally, we have extended our contact center service hours from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday to Friday and from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturdays and public holidays. In light of the COVID-19 risks, we encourage taxpayers to reach us through our improved contact center and other online platforms instead of making physical visits to our offices. For online support, please reach us through our toll-free lines 0800 117 000 or 0800 217 000. Email services@ura.go.ug. Website ura.go.ug. Social media Facebook URA page. Twitter @URA Uganda. URA Customs Help Tool help.ura.go.ug/login. URA appreciates all taxpayers who have duly fulfilled their obligations. Stay safe and let us all observe the standard operating procedures to prevent further spread of the COVID-19 virus. Stay safe as we develop Uganda together.
Uganda Revenue Authority, developing Uganda together.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Century Points when you deposit, send, and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Welcome back from the break and thank you for watching UBC News Tonight. Now, a new addition to the list of newly appointed permanent secretaries, we have the PS, Ministry of Education and Sports as Kate Lamaro. So big congratulations to her. Now moving on, Supreme Court has issued a temporary stay of execution orders and declarations by the Constitutional Court in the matter where former MP Mike Kabaziguluka was challenging his trial in the General Court Martial. The stay of execution followed what Supreme Court described as fair hearing of submissions made by both sides in the application filed by the Attorney General for want of court to halt all the execution orders and declarations by the Constitutional Court. Now, our reporter Deborah Namamonde reports that the panel of 5 justices of the Supreme Court, led by the Chief Justice Alfonso Owinidolo, will deliver a detailed ruling on the application on the 29th of July 2021.
In a majority decision in the case filed by the former Member of Parliament for Nakawa East constituency, Michael Kabaziguluka, the Constitutional Court judges agreed that the General Court Martial is not an independent and impartial court to try civilians since they are not subject to military law. They also ordered all files in the court martial to be recorded by the DPP's office for fresh trial in the suitable civilian courts of law. The panel of 5 justices of the Constitutional Court was led by Justice Kenneth Kakulu, Lady Justice Helen Obura, Justice Stephen Musota, Justice Christopher Madrama, and Justice Remy Kasule. Following the decision, the Attorney General appealed against the judgment to the Supreme Court challenging the decision and all orders and declarations made by the Constitutional Court. In an application of stay of execution orders filed in the Supreme Court, the Attorney General informed the court that the lower court failed to determine this matter on the principles of abiding precedents set by the Supreme Court in relation to the subject matter.
The status quo as it is now, where the General Court Martial exercises its jurisdiction the way it does, is as a result of those judgments. The most authoritative would be Constitutional Appeal number 1 of 2006, Attorney General versus Uganda Law Society.
In that case of freedom of speech, one of the issues was the powers of the High Court, whether it has powers to determine a person is a member of Parliament.
He also adds that there are high chances for the main suit to succeed. On this, informed the court that if the application is not granted, the main suit will be rendered useless.
We feel like we have demonstrated that we have very serious tribal issues regarding the functionality of the General Court Martial.
The court itself is established outside the law. The court itself is partisan in terms of the way it is constituted, in terms of the way it dispenses justice.
The Attorney General also informed the court that this will violate Article 210 of the UPDF Act, which gives General Court Martial powers to try militants entitled to military law, most of those outside the country.
What we mean, my lords, is if a soldier, for example, murders someone else in Somalia, he cannot be tried because our court's jurisdiction is only restricted to Uganda laws.
Article 210 mandated Parliament to make a law that regulates the UPDF in terms of recruitment, deployment, and mainly discipline. It does not empower Parliament to make a law that establishes a court.
Honorable Michael Kabaziguluka, through his legal team led by Medad Lubega Segona, in reply informed the court that there will be no harm if these orders are abided by the DPP's office.
No suspect, and I don't want to use the word criminal, will be let loose except in accordance with the judicial system of this country. There is no contest as to the jurisdiction of these civil courts.
Segona also told the court that there is no need to have a parallel judiciary system in the same country.
The people trying him there have no professional training of any nature. In other words, we do not have a parallel executive. We do not have a parallel legislature. Why would we accept to have a parallel judicial system?
After listening to both sides' submissions, court issued a temporary stay of execution orders until 29th July 2021, when court will pronounce itself in this application. Deborah Namamonde, UBC News.
Nakawa Grade 1 Magistrate Court has charged and remanded one Nyamwamba Kuzaifa on charges of murder of Brenda Nantongo, Haruna Kayondo, and attempted assassination of General Edward Katumba Wamala. The accused appeared before Chief Magistrate Dr. Singiza Douglas. However, since this court had no jurisdiction to handle such matters before, Nyamwamba was remanded to Chitalia Government Prison.
The suspect Nyamwamba Kuzaifa appeared at Nakawa Grade 1 Magistrate Court before Magistrate Douglas Singiza at 11:30 a.m. Before court, he was charged with 3 counts of attempted assassination of General Edward Katumba Wamala and murder of his daughter Brenda Nantongo and driver Haruna Kayondo.
Magezako okutiisatiisa oba okutiisatiisa okutiisatiisa abantu olw'ensonga zammwe ez'ebyobufuzi era ne mugezaako n'okutta abapoliisi abasirikale ba UPDF n'abantu ba bulijjo era ne mulumba ne police barracks.
Prosecution led by Counsel Brenda Chomugisha after charge informed court that inquiries are still ongoing in this matter. On this, she asked court for more time, which court granted. Wameli Anthony, who represented the accused, although they were ready to ask court to grant the accused bail to get medical attention. However, this was objected by court.
He probably has any other chance to appear before a judicial office. Number 2, she would pray that you make specific orders for urgent medical attention as can be availed in the facility where he will be taken.
Due to lack of jurisdiction by this court to handle such capital offences, Magistrate Douglas Singiza remanded the accused to Chitalia Government Prison until 3rd August 2021 for mention of this case. Talking to lawyers for the accused person after court made allegations about the torture inflicted on the accused. Lawyers also revealed other intentions of filing an application to High Court soon in regard to the accused persons in the same matter.
We have filed an application for enforcement and promotion of their rights, specifically the right to freedom from torture and also the right to personal liberty. These rights were violated, and we want the court to order for compensation and other remedies that we have sought in the application. We have filed an application for a certificate of urgency, this being lockdown and sort of court vacation or court lockdown, and that application for the certificate of urgency has been fixed for tomorrow.
Prosecution alleges that on 1st June 2021 at Kisaki Central Zone in Kampala District, the 8 murdered Sergeant Haruna Kayondo and Brenda Nantongo, daughter to General Edward Katumba Wamala. Prosecution also contains that on the same date, the 8 attempted to assassinate General Edward Katumba Wamala, Sergeant Kadi Kuboit, Boniface Muchunguza and other security operatives. Deborah Namamonde, UBC News.
Makindye Grade 1 Magistrate Court before Magistrate Patience Tukundane Rona has charged and remanded one Mubale Peter to Chitalia Government Prison on charges of rash or negligent action when he caused the death of Athia Benny Ball. The accused, Mubale Peter, after charge, pleaded not guilty to the alleged offences. Prosecution, led by Counsel Adongo Harriet, informed court that the inquiries are competent, thus asking court to set the date for the hearing of this matter. It is alleged on the 9th of December 2020 at King's School, Kabowa, Lubaga Division in Kampala District, through a rash and negligent act, Mubale Peter, while serving as a teacher at the school, caused the death of Athia Benny Bola, a 13-year-old pupil, administering a cane to the said deceased. All right, now the former Speaker of Parliament, Rebecca Alitwala Kadaga, has received a service award from the Clerk to Parliament as a sign of appreciation for her service to the country and the institution of Parliament. Now, this award to Kadaga is a sign of appreciation by Parliament for her work in steering Parliament for the last 10 years as Speaker. Right Honourable Kadaga, who was Speaker for 10 years from 2011 to 2021, is now the first Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of East African Affairs and is pushing for the establishment of the Central East African Bank for increased integration of East African community. We have the highlights of the story.
But I'm really happy that my services and those of the other leaders were recognized.
The award that we've just presented to the Right Honourable Kadaga is a sign of appreciation as Parliament for her work and for steering Parliament for all those years. So we are giving our sign of, we are appreciating all the management. Of course, she was the leader, so we are giving all the leaders of her time. So we are going to give to the Prime Minister, we are giving to the Government Chief Whip, we've given to the LOPs, and also we'll give to the commissioners.
The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, in collaboration with other stakeholders, has launched the African Internet of Things and Artificial Intelligence, which will spur innovation in the country. Now, the challenge will see 6 Ugandans compete at international level, and winners shall have a chance to engage with the world's most succession company and innovations funded. Sadam Mubale with the report.
The Ministry of ICT and National Guidance, in collaboration with other stakeholders, have launched the African Internet of Things and Artificial Intelligence Challenge, which will spur the growth of innovations in the country.
We are therefore working with the ministry responsible for education and sports here in Uganda to ensure that our children start coding early in life. Schools are progressively being connected to the internet, and school labs are being equipped everywhere in the country. This support is also being extended to universities and tertiary institutions such as Muni University in the northwestern part of the country, Guru University in the central north, and Soroti University in eastern Uganda.
The challenge targets mostly university finalists with ongoing projects that have an impact on the institutions of learning and others who are business starters but in internet intelligence sector, but not a final product.
You bring your product, it is you register, it is assessed, and then we'll pick the best. If you're a final year student, we are not taking every project. We are looking at 2 areas, Internet of Things and artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is part of computer science, one area of computer science, where you see like things like robotics and so on.
According to Professor Vanasha Sebaryamureba, who is part of the Uganda National Steering Committee for the challenge, said this is a great opportunity for the country and will see the growth of talents and startup business from different innovators in the country.
Now, the winners at Africa level will be supported, some of them to go to Silicon Valley, to go to all these what we call world-class incubation hubs. And the reason they are going to go there is to work on the innovations and turn them into million-dollar projects or billion-dollar projects.
The challenge will see 6 different innovators from Uganda who will compete at the regional level in Africa, where the winner will compete at the international level in Dubai and will have a chance to engage with globally successful companies like Apple, Facebook, Yahoo, among others.
Now, the winners at Africa level will be supported, some of them to go to Silicon Valley, to go to all these what we call world-class incubation hubs. And the reason they are going to go there is to work on the innovations and turn them into million-dollar projects or billion-dollar projects.
Sadam Mubale, UBC News, Kampala.
Jinja Main Hospital has secured medical equipment worth 210 Uganda million shillings to improve on the provision of health services. We have details in this report.
Jinja Hospital suffers from an influx of patients originating from different parts of Busoga and the neighboring districts. The hospital was initially designed to handle only referrals, but the non-referral cases, computed at 75%, continue to flock the facility for various medical services.
And it serves 11 districts and 1 city. 11 districts. But on top of the designated 11 districts, we receive patients from Kayunga.
According to the hospital director, Dr. Florence Tugumisirize, with the acquisition of new equipment under the capitation grant, the hospital expects to extend better services.
Especially, we are looking at improving the outcome for theatre. Because if you do not have equipment, theatre equipment, you cannot be sure the quality of operation you are going to carry.
The equipment secured include, among others, patient monitors, emergency trolleys, and gene expert machines. Under the capitation grant, Jinja Hospital Administration expects to complete staff accommodation projects in December this year. However, the hospital is facing a challenge of land grabbing from those neighboring it. An engagement team summoned by Jinja RCC toward about 5 acres of the hospital land that is in question. The RCC retired Major David Matovu says his office will liaise with the land ministry to see that the hospital land is secure.
About 3-4 chunks of land are facing encroachment, but the mayor and the council, the speaker has been around. We are going to get a formal communication seeking our intervention, and then we see those in the court, those pending, those disposed of, so that now we can now engage government.
Adiana Kote, UBC.
Now, police in Lauryn Masika is challenged with increasing cases of domestic violence, rape and defilement. Assistant Superintendent of Police, Masika Police Post, Team Edith, says that while they are faced with the challenge of enforcing the COVID-19 directives, cases of domestic violence and rape are on the increase. She urged parents to ensure harmony and coexistence in families to minimize such cases.
With the increasing cases of domestic violence, rape and defilement. Assistant Superintendent of Police, Masika Police Post, Team Edith, says that while they are faced with the challenge of enforcing the COVID-19 directives, cases of domestic violence and rape are on the increase. She urged parents to ensure harmony and coexistence in families to minimize such cases. A team made the remarks while receiving maize flour, soap, sugar, masks and sanitizers, among other assortments, donated by the State Minister for Higher Education, Dr. Jesse Muyingo. The items were delivered by his political assistant in Bamnanika, Abdul Karim Waswa.
Saying that the public should follow the government directives. We shall also continue doing our work because that is what brought us here. And I'd like to thank everyone who is around. The community should know that we are here for them and we shall continue working. As they also follow the directives of the government, then we shall also cohabit in peace.
Minister Muyingo also donated to taxi drivers, boda riders, the elderly, persons with disabilities and market vendors. Abdul Karim Waswa promised that Dr. Muyingo will continue with his programs of supporting the underprivileged in the area. The chairman for persons with disabilities, Hakim Severi, commended Minister Muyingo for the support towards the underprivileged.
My estimate is about 492 people with disabilities. Dr. Jesse Muyingo has been assisting these people for a period of 10 years and he has started another term. Thank him so much. He's in the real feet of His Excellency Y.K. Museveni.
Atim says that though there is noticeable compliance of SOPs, there is need for more. Salome Fred Kasibante,
All right, new UBC News Tonight takes a short break, but we return with business news.
Echa COVID-19 chija kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
In efforts to improve quality assurance and Uganda's competitiveness as a tourist destination, Uganda Tourism Board is set to undertake a nationwide grading and classification exercise of hotel and accommodation facilities. As a member of the East African community, Uganda subscribes to the East African Grading and Classification Criteria, a system denoted by stars ranging from 1 to 5. The grading and classification exercise will be crowned by the awarding of star ratings to facilities found compliant to the EAC minimum standards. This is therefore a call to all accommodation and facility owners and managers to register and get licensed by UTB as a requirement and get ready for participation. For more information, visit www.utb.go.ug or email qualityassurance@utb.go.ug for details. Uganda Tourism Board, promoting tourism together.
The Universal Periodic Review, UPR, is a mechanism under the United Nations where member states review each other's human rights situation every 4 years. It's a voluntary process where all states are treated as equal partners.
The ultimate aim of the UPR is to improve on the human rights situation in all countries through technical assistance and cooperation.
The UPR is a state-driven process, and as such, the preparation of the report is done by an interministerial committee on human rights that is chaired by Foreign Affairs. We value stakeholder input in the process and therefore appreciate the role of civil society in the third cycle of the UPR process.
To this effect, the National Coalition of Human Rights Defenders Uganda, a civil society organization, is coordinating all civil society organizations to participate in this process of the alternative reporting in liaison with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Uganda.
The Office of the Prime Minister, together with the National Planning Authority, will on Friday 16th July 2021 launch the National Development Plan web-based monitoring and evaluation system developed to provide timely progress assessment on the performance of the National Development Plan. This message is brought to you with support from the European Union.
Welcome back from that break. Now into business. Tourism sector players are appealing to government to loosen up on the ban of local tourists. Hanji Bashir, the Public Relations Officer UA, says local tourism can be a major boost to the struggling industry. Hanji says although government allowed the sector to operate during the current lockdown, the number of foreign tourists is dismal. Dennis Sagoa with more.
The tourism sector has been hit hard for the second consecutive year. The surge of coronavirus infections in the country, which provoked a total lockdown, has led to trip cancellations and significant loss of revenue.
Between April and June last year, we got around 1,010 tourists in all protected areas.
That is last year?
Yeah, between April and June. And if you compare June alone, rather between April and June, we had around 1,040. June alone we had around 1,010, which means between April and June you had around 40, 30, and then the other all came in June. Now this year we've got around 12,000 visitors in the month of June who have visited our protected areas. This is a huge difference, and if you look at the quota, for instance, between April and June, we've got around 38,000 visitors.
However, the current lockdown has not been as intense as the first one, in that the tourism sector has been allowed to operate. Nonetheless, the stringent guidelines and the domestic tourism ban have kept the huge numbers of potential local and foreign visitors away from the protected areas.
It is clear that it has largely affected local tourists because the conditions that have been set to follow, someone using a tourism registered vehicle, having negative PCR tests, and all these other requirements are not easy for locals really. Most of them have sat home and have complained that we have left them out.
UWA annually expects about 330,000 visitors to its protected areas.
It is through this tourism revenue that we are able to do conservation work. It is through this revenue that we are able to do animal translocation, monitoring, treatment, food rations for our rangers, uniform, salaries, mention it.
Whereas these numbers are encouraging compared to last year, it's like a drop in the ocean, says Bashir Hanji, the public relations officer at the Uganda Wildlife Authority. Most of the tourists that are keeping the sector afloat are mainly foreign nationals residing in Uganda and East Africans. As the country continues to vaccinate its population, UWA is making an appeal to the COVID-19 task force on the revival of domestic tourism.
People want to go and meditate with nature. They want to go out, and get out from the hustles and the bustles of the city. But they need to be supported by the National Task Force so that they are allowed, especially those ones who have the capacity. Because if, for instance, people can observe social distance in a vehicle, let's say a vehicle five-seater, and you are 3, and you are all negative, you are all fully vaccinated, you should be allowed to go and do tourism activities.
Uganda had set a 2020 target of attracting more than 2 million visitors to the country after achieving a milestone 1.6 million visitors in 2019. But the outbreak of the pandemic might have hampered the ambitious goal. Dennis Igoa for UBC News.
And in sports, Thomas Bach, president of the International Olympic Committee, on Tuesday expressed his confidence in the upcoming Tokyo Olympics, saying it will be secure and safe. Giving a short speech at the headquarters of the Tokyo Olympics Organizing Committee, Bach called on the Japanese people to have confidence in all the efforts they are undertaking to make these games for them secure and safe, with all the intensive, most strict COVID-19 countermeasures. This is his first public appearance since arriving in Tokyo last week. The pandemic-postponed Olympics will be open in 10 days, and the Tokyo Metropolis has officially entered the 4th round of the state of emergency, and it is scheduled to last until August the 22nd, meaning that the opening ceremony on July 23rd for the Olympic Games will be within the period of the state of emergency. And with that, we come to the end of this newscast. Thank you so much for your company this lovely evening. Do enjoy the rest of the evening and the upcoming weekend as well. I'm Lauryn Masika Kazimoto and Elizabeth Nakakoni on sign language. We wish you a blessed night. We leave you with Kutesa Mili with tomorrow's weather forecast. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in once again, Kutesa Mili, with your weather update. We are still having thunder showers in most parts of the country, though some few areas are still experiencing sunny intervals. We are seeing a maximum of 67.7 millimeters of rainfall across Kitgum. That is pretty much of rainfall. Kampala is 22.8, Gulu is 22.4, Soweto is 16.3, Masaka was the lowest of 14. 0.10 millimeters. This is due to the rainbow that has shifted back into our country, increased with the moist easterlies blowing from the Indian Ocean towards our country, enhanced with the local effects, hence bringing us the weather that we're experiencing lately. Tomorrow morning, though, we expect to wake up with thunder showers most parts of the northern country, the eastern and across the lake shores, but from some few areas across Masindi and other areas like Mbarara and Kawale, expect to have sunny intervals. After an hour, though, expect a continuation of thunder showers mainly in northern part of our region and light showers across the lake shores, but a continuation of sunny intervals across Masindi and Kasese. Temperature rise up 26 degrees Celsius across the Karamoja region and around the lake shores, including our capital city, Kampala, the lowest across Kabale with 23 degrees Celsius. Yoho is moving out of our country, touring other cities around the globe. We are forecasting sunny conditions across Dubai with a maximum of 42 degrees Celsius, Hong Kong, New York, Johannesburg. Expect to have sunny intervals with a maximum of 32 degrees Celsius across Hong Kong, but Mombasa is expected to have light showers. Thanks for tuning on UBC. I remain Kutesa Mili. Stay tuned and see you tomorrow.